أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلوات وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Today coincides with the first day of the sacred month of Safar. Condolences to my dear brothers and sisters for the ongoing events of Masa'ib that we are commemorating during these sad days all the way until the Arba'in of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Just before I start, I wanted to ask if anyone has anything to comment on or ask about based only on our previous session. If so, please take the mic, or you can write on the chat. If not, we'll start with today's session. There have been only a few of the participants who have emailed me, so I'm assuming for the rest you either have access to Al-Marhum Ayatollah Masbah's book, or you're going through the link that I posted on the Telegram group, or you probably don't have enough time. That's understandable as well, because what we're trying to deliver in this course is very basic elementary level as far as epistemology is concerned. And that's why those who are probably a little bit more advanced, or have done some prior studies or reading, maybe in university, you need to bear with me if there is information that you think to be repetitive for you. But I'm sure the majority, from what I understand, are new to this field. One of the important points that we mentioned in session 1 was the formulating of this ilm as an independent science, as an independent discipline. And we said that in the Shi'i world, it doesn't date back anything earlier than the time of Al-Allama Tabatabai and Al-Shahid al-Sadr, Radwanullah ta'ala alayhima, as far as an independent science. But as far as it being within the passages and theories of Islamic sciences in general, yes, it dates back all the way to the Quran. And of course, we know that as far as theories and things like that, it goes even earlier than that, back to ancient Greek philosophy, and prior to that as well. And that's why we mentioned Sufism. Now, I think what we do understand is that in the Shi'i world, there wasn't that much antagonism as far as intellectual study or the value of aql is concerned. The reason why that's very important to mention is because in the Shia tradition, it did not have someone like Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, who aggressively attacked philosophy and also intellectual or rational discipline. And so when it comes to the overall direction, all the way until Akhbarism, and then the Tafkiki school, there wasn't any kind of like outstanding opposition against the role of reason and rationality. And so there wasn't any much of a reason to tackle these issues. It's only when you can see that there was the strong influence of akhbarism and then tafkikism, and of course that kind of like seeped into the wider Shi'i society as well. And what do I mean by seeping into the wider Shi'i society? Because there are usuli, if we could say, usuli ulama who were not against the role of intellect, especially when it came to it being a source of legislation, but yet they became very much against philosophy. And of course, by default, if you're against philosophy, then you're going to be against irfan. And this was all under the pretense that, oh, well, you know, it's not something that any of the ma'sumin alayhim salam said. So what I mean is such individuals do not officially classify themselves as tafkikis or akhbaris, but yet they still kind of like have this anti-philosophy or kind of outlook. Now, what does that have to do with what it is that we're talking about? It has a lot to do with what we are talking about, because ultimately what we need to understand as far as taking an epistemic theory and looking at it purely as far as it being ilmul ilm, or the knowledge of knowledge, you need to understand that the one and very important principle that we need to have is classification, categorizing. And this is why classification of knowledge is extremely important. And this is why we need, for every topic and every ilm, every science, to make sure you use the correct terminology based on that particular science, and you use the instruments of that particular science within that field. You cannot use the word qiyas in the fiqhi meaning equally the same as the word qiyas in logic, because in logic it's a very good thing. In fiqh it's condemned, and it's the same word, because in logic the fiqhi qiyas is not called logic, it's called tamthil, right? And so it's incorrect and ingenuine also. If someone's doing it intentionally, it's ingenuine if someone was to do this. Now, this even bears more importance when you have a look at the word ilm. Here, when we're talking about ilm or epistemology or nadhariyatul ma'rifah, ma'rifat shanasi, which is the Arabic and Persian title for epistemology, what does ma'rifah here mean? Are we talking about that same ma'rifah that we need to have for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or for our nafs? Man arifa nafsahu faqad arifa rabbah. Or Allahumma arifni nafsak fa innaka in lam tu'arifni nafsak lam a'rif rasulak lam a'rif nabiyak. Is that the kind of ma'rifah that we are referring to here? Simply the answer is no, that's not the kind of ma'rifah that we are referring to. I'm going to explain what kind of ma'rifah we refer to when it comes to knowledge, but it's all a matter of not being confused by mixing of terminology. I think that's the primary point that I'm trying to make here. And to always remember that when it comes to something that you hear in this, it's going to be something different than you hear somewhere else. Shak, for example, in fiqh is different to shak in rational sciences. Shak in rational sciences is a sickness, it's an illness, it's a rational intellectual illness. Shak in fiqh could be something completely normal. And that's why, inshallah, later on, when we speak about someone who is inflicted with the illness of shak, of course, we have certain narrations that talk about shak, kathratu shak min qillatil iman, excessive shouts, excessive doubt originates from a lack or weakness of iman, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, so these are just points, and hopefully with the participants, if you have a notebook and you write down these notes and things like that, it would be good. And if there's anyone interested in these slides, I'm also more than happy to share it in the form of, ongoing sadaqah jariyah. Someone wants to, change it around and use it as a presentation, then by all means you're able to do so. So ma'rifah. What kind of definition is there that we need to have for ma'rifah? That's a very important initial standpoint. And ilm as well, ilm also. So are we able to know? That's the kind of fundamental question carrying on from our previous session. Is it possible to reach that level where you have a comprehensive understanding of something? Or is it pretty much just imaginative? And that's why even when it comes to people who were against the role of intellect, what they did pretty much was what we refer to as ta'tilul aql, which means to dismiss the role of intellect, that the intellect has no say because it's beyond the capacity of the intellect. So for example, when some of the Ash'ari theologians were to describe something, they would say something along the lines of, or the Mujassima, they would say something along the lines of yaliqu bih. He has a saq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wal a'yadhu billah. He has a leg or he has a hand, but not like ours. It's something befitting for him. Or they would say, well, this is, beyond our understanding. So we don't really know what adlullah means, but it's all up to him to decide what adl means. So it's kind of like ta'tilul aql, to cancel or dismiss the role of the intellect. And sometimes when we want to obtain the reality of something, we need to know where it falls as far as its what kind of category of ilm that bears. So if you say that, if you ask the question, describe al-anqa. Describe al-anqa is simorgh, which is phoenix. So describe to me al-anqa. You're going to say, oh, well, al-anqa is a bird made from fire, and it dies and revives itself through its dust. Okay, but is that correspondent to reality? Is there any mutabaqa here lil waqi', or have you really 100% obtained the reality, or what is this? You know, do you have access to this knowledge? Has it been locked out? Have you been locked out from it? So here you're going to have someone who is an extreme radical skeptic who says, no, we are not able to have access to anything. We really don't know whether there is a reality or not. And then another skeptic would say, who's a little bit of a mild shakkak, a mild skeptic, would say, well, there is reality, but there's no external reality. We can't really be 100% confident and sure that there is an external reality. You know, that's why, you know, there's that famous saying, I think, therefore I am. So very quick question, just type down, who said that? Which alim said that? I said, what's his first name, Mr. Brother Maitham? Pascal. No, it wasn't Pascal, Brother Nasser.
Rene Descartes, yes.
Descartes. The S is silent. Thank you so much. Lucky no one mentioned that it was from one of our ulama. Of course, you know, even with that view, you welcome, Brother Maitham. Even with that, the initial point of embarkment, as far as Descartes' view is concerned, is not solidifying the role of aql, but rather starting with skepticism and ending with certainty and yaqeen. Whereas the Islamic approach is everything starts with yaqeen and continues on as such unless otherwise proven. And so again, this is all about classification. It's all about classifying. You know, it's like when you say to someone, I don't think that is really correct in its whole kind of meaning, that al-rajul al-mu'allaq of Ibn Sina, and that being kind of like modified by Descartes. But that's another topic, Bilal. Let's not jump. I think I am jumping now, but anyway, you can't hear with your eyes and you can't see with your taste. So you can't request from someone to do something that is beyond their capacity if it falls into a different category. Okay, so that's why this is extremely important. No, that's fine, brother. Let's carry on. So boundaries and limitations of each source. What is the essence of ma'rifah? Let's address that. Is ma'rifah possible? Again, ma'rifah here means to know. Ma'rifah here means to know. That's why it says epistemology. Ma'rifah here means to know. And what are the sources of ma'rifah? What are the sources of epistemic knowledge and information? I don't know if it's necessary for me to mention, but I'm going to say anyway that, you know, when we say ma'rifah in this sense, and epistemology in this sense, we're referring to Ain Ra Fa. And this arifa, which is a very broad word, very broad word as far as its applications and terminologies. And that's where irfan comes from. Irfan also comes from ma'rifah. But of course, ma'rifatul wujud or ma'rifatullah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ma'rifah here is in reference to ma'rifatul ma'loom, ma'rifatul ilm, of course, in that sense. And so, you know, epistemology has been adopted as the term representing this field of science. And with irfan, the word mysticism is its equivalent. And then you have gnosis or gnosis, which, you know, is also a kind of ma'rifah, but because it was kind of like hijacked by a fundamentalist kind of occult Christian group, people are very hesitant to use that word to represent any of these. Anyway, let me go to a video clip that I have chosen for us to sound is good?
No sound, Sheikh.
No sound?
Now there is.
Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon?
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself.
Miracle will see now.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help.
Sorry about that. Let's finish the... I don't usually use this. Why is it doing that? لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. It can't be the same one. It's very weird. Sorry about that, brothers and sisters.
There is no second video, Sheikh.
Really?
Just as there is no spoon.
Oh, I had a second video. Where is that gone then? There's no sound, and someone's saying there's no sound and nothing on the screen. Is that?
It's okay for me. I have sound and
Oh.
visual.
Okay. I don't know where it is, but anyway, let's get back to I had a second. No, they look different, don't they? That's very weird. Don't they look different? Don't the links look different?
They do, but I think what's happened, Sheikh, is you may have copied the same video from 2 different channels.
No, I
And
wouldn't
that's
do.
why the address looks different, but the videos are the same.
All right. Anyway, go back to the dars. All right. Let's read this passage from. I wanted to show the clip of the 4th century BC philosopher, but anyway, let's read this passage, and I think you'll. Oh, thank you, brother Muhammad. Where did you get that from?
And now we must speak of Zhuangzi.
Oh,
who
oh,
fell
that's good.
asleep one day and dreamed he was a butterfly.
All right, let's watch this. That's why technology is really important, and how backward I am. I can't even find a link. That's what Qum does to you.
And now we must speak of Zhuangzi, who fell asleep one day and dreamed he was a butterfly. For hours he fluttered in the warm winter sun until he no longer remembered he was Zhuangzi. Suddenly he awoke, and he was Zhuangzi again. But in that moment he didn't know, was he Zhuangzi who had dreamt he was a butterfly? Or a butterfly who was dreaming he was Zhuangzi? A delusion starts, like any other idea, as an egg, identical on the outside, perfectly formed. From the shell, you'd never know anything was wrong. It's what's inside that matters.
Thank you, brother Muhammad Samir. Thank you very much for that. I don't know what was wrong. So I'm very sure what the brothers and sisters, I'm sure you know what it is that I'm getting to. So following up from the previous kind of way of understanding things as far as this area is concerned, and skepticism, we know that it's become extremely problematic to even like think the most basic of things, and the most simple of things are now under question and challenged. You know, you knowing something itself is now all of a sudden, well, do you really know that you know? And that's why in this parable of the butterfly dream, you know, he was dreaming he was a butterfly, but then it was like very similar to someone dreaming that they're in a dream. And, you know, so when you're dreaming that you're in a dream, have you woken up from the dream? Or are you still kind of like, so those who do, and there are among, even until today, those who reject external reality. And, even David Hume, who was a shakak, who was a skeptic, addresses this. Now, you're probably saying, oh, well, why are we going to the extreme and saying that, well, there's someone who, there are people who think that we are just a figment of our imagination, and that we're just the dream in an alien's mind. Or if you watched Horton Hears a Who, it's pretty much along those lines. But that's what happens with skepticism, because skepticism is allowing you to enter into this never-ending debate about reality, never-ending debate about reality. And that's why it needs to be addressed. And that's why it's so critical to look into. And it all originates from limiting our access to knowledge to only one field, and that is just and only senses, and then not focusing in any way on any of these. Okay, well, in the Western world, when it comes to experimenting and empirical knowledge, that's also going to be important, but that doesn't carry any weight in religion. And so it's still going to be problematic. And that's why scientists, all of a sudden say, well, because I'm a scientist, I don't believe, because they're not able to somehow find harmony between scientific information that is one source of ma'rifah and information that comes through like revelation that is another legitimate source of ma'rifah and information and knowledge. So this is where a lot of the problems originate. And as I said, inshallah, we're going to go through that, especially with senses, but continuing on. Knowledge is divided into different categories. One initial way of dividing ilm is into it being something present within your very innate self, and that we refer to as al-ilm al-huduri, or presential knowledge, or knowledge by presence. Those who are interested in learning about knowledge by presence as a topic, then you must refer to the late Mehdi Ha'iri Yazdi book on epistemology, where he discusses al-ilm al-huduri, and knowledge by presence. Knowledge by presence, an example for knowledge by presence is, as I said, knowledge of your own self. Ilmuka bidhatik, ilmuka binafsik. When you have that feeling of hunger, you know that you are hungry. And with you knowing that you are hungry, it is impossible for it to be wrong, nor is it possible for you to deny or reject that. Yes, verbally you can say, no, I'm not hungry, but within yourself, it is 100% yaqini knowledge. It is 100% accurate and certain. you say that you, for example, love someone. That love is also not something that you've, for example, picked up on in a later period of your life or acquired and learned. No, it's something in it within yourself. And therefore, it doesn't matter what you do or how you try. Yes, Brother Bilal, it was written in English. It was written in English. It doesn't matter what you do or how much you try, that love that you have for example, for someone, that love that Majnun had for Layla, cannot be rejected or can't be false. Or he can't be, for example, misinformed, because it wasn't something that came from the outside. It came from within the presence of his own nafs. Opposite to this is al-ilm al-husuli. So you have al-ilm al-huduri, then you have al-ilm al-husuli, which happens by acquisition. You acquire it. You pick up a book and, for example, you learn it. You read the book and you learn. This is acquired knowledge. Or you taste a grape and you eat it. Or you hear information from someone. Now, the book that you read, the grape that you tasted, the information that you heard, is it by default 100% accurate? The answer here is no, because al-ilm al-husuli is acquired knowledge. That acquired knowledge is of different grades. Could be 100% accurate, could be absolute lie. It could be accurate mixed with lie. It could be misleading. And what do I mean by accurate mixed with lie? What I mean is that, yes, 98% of the information is correct, but the conclusion, the natija, is false, wrong. And what is that? That's a fallacy. A fallacious argument or mughalata is, no one's going to have any problems with the muqaddimat, with the premise arguments. It's the natija that is wrong. And the smarter a person is, smarter not as far as intelligence is concerned, because you could probably be reading and studying a lot and still be, you know, what can we say, dumb in that sense. But the more you are able to pinpoint the mughalata and understand the place in where that person went wrong, the more equipped you will be to distinguish between haqq and batil. The window is broken. A rock can break a window. Therefore, the rock broke this window. The minor premise is correct. You know, the major premise is correct. The conclusion is wrong. Because, yes, it could have been a rock that broke the window, but it could have been a hammer that broke the window, or could have been something else that broke the window. So, and applying this to our understanding, where you say, for example, okay, everything in Al-Kafi is authentic. That's what some of the akhbaris say. Everything in Al-Kafi is authentic and correct. Okay, what about some of the narrations that are mentioned in Al-Kafi by Al-Marhum Al-Kulaini that have been added to Al-Kafi, but are very insulting to the maqam of the Ma'soom, the status of the Ma'soom alayhi salam. What do we do with that? Oh, but it is in Al-Kafi. So because it is in Al-Kafi, the conclusion is also going to be along those lines. Whereas if we were to make different classifications and categorize things differently, then it's not going to lead to a problem. If you heard something, you can't base it on 100% accuracy as far as your ilm is concerned. It could be speculative. It could just be dhanni, right? And that's why, you know, even Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, he says, بين الحق والباطل أربعة أصابع. Between haqq and batil, there are 4 fingers, what you hear and what you see. Now, then of course, you've got, with acquired knowledge, you have another kind of division. You've got acquired knowledge being badihi, self-evident, and being nadhari, being something that is speculative. But that's and presential knowledge as well. No, a priori and a posteriori is pretty much the same in that sense, brother Shuja. Yeah. I avoided using a priori and a posteriori because I wanted to, you know, talk about these things within the Islamic context. Wujdan of Allah. You mean God's consciousness or
our experience or our realization per se?
So our knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is that what you mean?
Yes, but more of an advanced realization, not like the initial fitri per se.
No,
it'd be hard to explain, but
it's not a type of ilm huduri, because if it was a type of ilm huduri, then no 2 people would disagree in it. So, and that's why, Brother Maytham, you mentioned the word fitra. So fitra, wujdan, these things are different. They do interact, but they're different to al-ilm al-huduri. And ilham is also different as well. So, and I didn't want to mention these things because we haven't got to al-ilm al-qalbi or ilm al-wahyani, which is where we speak about those things. So al-ilm al-qalbi, that's where the topic of wujdan and ilham and fitra is discussed. So if it's possible, if we could just bear that in mind, and when we talk about al-ilm al-qalbi, that will be discussed. So where's that going to be? Okay, so that's going to be, I'm pointing to the screen and you can't see the screen. Yeah, so that's going to be here. All right.
inshallah.
Okay, so al-ilm al-husuli is different to al-ilm al-huduri. Al-ilm al-huduri is knowledge that you acquire, and then with al-ilm al-husuli, knowledge that you acquire, once in one case you acquire it in such a way where you build an idea of what it is that you've acquired mentally in your mind. Someone runs to you and says, it's raining. So in your mind, you bring and gather all of the information in your mind as far as rain and matar is concerned. Drops of water coming from the sky, clouds. So all of this is you forming an image in your mind. And then when you open the door and walk outside, you realize that, yes, it is raining outside. I confirm that it is raining outside. And this is what we refer to as al-tasawwur and al-tasdiq. Al-tasawwur is conceptualizing something in your mind. Al-tasdiq is affirming that which you have conceptualized in your mind. Now, with this tasdiq, is it correspondent to reality or not? That's the question. With your tasawwur, with what it is that you've conceptualized, is it accurate or not? That is the question. Now, which field of study deals with tasawwur and tasdiq? Logic. Where do you deal with al-ilm al-huduri and al-ilm al-husuli? Logic. That's why in the previous session, I said that ilm al-mantiq is extremely important. Ilm al-mantiq is referred to as al-ulum. And so if any of my brothers and sisters here who are interested in these kind of studies and have not gone through a whole dawra, a whole course of ilm al-mantiq, you must. It is necessary. It is wajib aini for this field. I wanted to share. It's a bit of a. It is an advanced book, but it's very good to read. Sadr ad-Din al-Shirazi, Mullah Sadra, he wrote a treatise called Risala fil Tasawwuri wal Tasdiq. Now, of course, now you're going to say to me, oh, but Sheikh, didn't you say that it was only around about the time of Alama al-Tabatabai and al-Shahid al-Sadr, rahimahumullah, that wrote about epistemology and things like that? Yes. But as I said, there's always been in the Shi'i tradition and the Sunni tradition of rational sciences, topics that were discussed that are very much relevant to epistemology. And that's why this is a wonderful book to read. And it has a very long introduction as well by Jawab Lamir, who I think he's PhD from Leiden University. The muqaddimah, it's around about 100 pages. Yeah. Well, it's exactly 100 pages, his introduction. So very good read, and also has a lot of detailed connotation notes that explain the text of Al-Mullah Sadra, translated into English. You can read the Arabic if you have access to, if you can read Arabic, but if you can't, then this. And conception and it is an English book. This is an English book, brother. Conception and belief in Sadr ad-Din Shirazi, al-Risala fil Tasawwuri wal Tasdiq. I'll post something on the Telegram group, inshallah, about it. So to further explain tasawwur and tasdiq, when you are defining an object of knowledge, what happens? That image kind of like comes into your mind after gathering information regarding it. So there's no hukm here. Hukm means judgment. So you're not evaluating it whether it corresponds to reality or not. You're just conceptualizing. You're just bringing together in your mind the concept of it being raining outside. Then al-tasdiq is know that you recognize with judgment, with hukm. So tasdiq is tasawwur plus hukm, tasawwur plus judgment, and that's why it's assent. It's referred to as assent, because you're doing judgment. There is going to be a nisba, a relation between the tasawwur of what it is that you're imaging, what you have formed as an image in your mind and the outside, and then you're conceptualizing the mawdu', and then you're conceptualizing the mahmul or the predicate as well. So al-hukm, al-nisba, tasawwur al-mawdu', tasawwur al-mahmul. Now, that when you ran outside and when you saw that it is raining in reality, then now you have yaqeen, you have certainty, 100% sure. Then another kind of tasdiq is, well, you're not really sure as far as that level of accuracy of information that you have in tasdiq, and therefore it is referred to as dhan. And dhan means speculative knowledge. So yaqeen is 100%, dhan is below 100%, but above 50%. Because 50-50 between ilm and jahl, between yaqeen and jahl, is shak. You don't know, you're not sure, but you can't say 100% no. And that's why when we mentioned the view of the agnostics, they don't say no, absolutely God absolutely doesn't exist. No, they say, well, I don't know that he does, and I don't know that he doesn't. So I'm 50-50. So you've got yaqeen, which is 100%, dhan, which is under 100, above 50, then shak is 50-50, then wahm is going to be the other side of the dhan, which is whatever the level of dhan is, then the other percentage is going to be wahm, and then 0, which is jahl. No, you can't refer to shak as an educated guess. Here it's not an issue of reference, it's an issue of the level, the percentage of knowledge that a person has. Anyway, again, here when we're talking about shak in this context, it's the worst of things, right? So maybe in our daily way of, for example, salah, you do shak between the third and the fourth rak'ah. You know, okay, that's, you know, probably a one-off thing that happens every once in a while. But of course, when it comes to, when shak turns to waswasa, it becomes very, very bad. Or jahl, for example. Jahl is normal. We all have jahl, but we have jahl basit, we have simple jahl, that I don't know, and I know that I don't know. But the jahl that is really dangerous, the jahl that is very bad, is al-jahl al-murakkab. I don't know, and I don't know that I don't know. That's going to be very bad. Okay, let's carry on. You remember when I said we need to make sure that we categorize things based on the usage of how the term is mentioned within each ilm, within each science. So with ma'rifah or with ilm, here, knowledge is related to epistemic knowledge that discusses the combination or the different areas of human perception. Now, to know, to understand, to recognize, all of these things are referred to when you say ilm, right? When you say ilm, you're referring to a lot of the, when you say the word ilm, you're referring to these things. You're saying recognizing, identifying, distinguishing, becoming acquainted with, apprehend, comprehend, right? But what is it? When you say, I know how to ride a bike, is that different to I know Ali? And is that different to I know that Mount Everest is the largest mountain in the world? Are these going to be of the same word, of the same meaning? Do they carry the same value as far as the ilm I know is concerned? Answer is, of course, obviously, no. No as in N-O, not no as in K-N-O-Y-W. So if that's the case, where does epistemology fall? Is it knowing how, or knowing who, or knowing that? Let's say if you say that, oh, you say, I know Ali. Can that be true or false? You say, oh yeah, I know Ali. I was with him the other day, but he's a kazeb, for example. He's a liar, for example, or he's telling the truth. Is that what we discuss in epistemology? Or is it knowing how? Can anyone answer?
Would it be dependent upon the context of what's being asked?
No. Well, of course, it's going to be dependent on the context of what's being asked, obviously. Yes, Sister Fatima, it is all about conclusion, but how? No. Thank you, Brother Muhammad Samir. Why did you say that, Brother Muhammad? Brother Muhammad, Aghaya Muhammad Samir, why did you say that? Explain yourself. Can you hear me? Because there should be different methods to evaluate the competence, knowledge, and acquaintance. I didn't understand. Well, you are right. So I just wanted to ask what your input was, why you chose propositional knowledge. In the sorry about that. In the case of accuracy is concerned, when it comes to something that we refer to as a piece of information, this is where we need to evaluate that piece of information. And this is why there in Arabic language, there's a difference between a jumla insha'iyya and a jumla khabariyya. If I say to you, stand up, you can't say, oh, don't lie. What do you mean? That makes absolutely no sense. Whereas in a, excuse me, whereas in a jumla khabariya, where I'm informing you about something, you need to verify the veracity of that statement and whether or not it is true. Along with this, it's also important to see how you can come up with an accurate conclusion, evaluating it that would correspond to reality. So if someone was to inform you that the World War II was in 1939, how are you able to obtain accuracy of this piece of information? Or that water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. How are you able to justify that particular claim and the propositional knowledge as far as this qadiyya is concerned? Can it be, does it come through empirical knowledge? Does it come through sensual knowledge, which is knowledge from your knowledge that comes about by your senses? Or does it come through burhani, rational knowledge? This is where we need to always remember that classification is going to be extremely important. And that's why when we are mentioning something, we need to know how to deal with that particular proposition. How to deal with that particular proposition. I gave the example of al-anqa, of a phoenix. Now, in our senses, where do we classify, which category do we put al-anqa, the phoenix? Is it in rational knowledge? Is it in experimental, empirical knowledge? Is it in sensual knowledge through our sensory perception? Where have we perceived the understanding of this? That's why initially it was Islamic philosophers who divided our hawas, who divided our senses into al-hawas al-zahiriyya and al-hawas al-batiniyya, outer senses and inner senses, exterior senses and interior senses. Thank you, Brother Bilal, Brother Shuja. Thank you. Exterior senses and interior senses. Al-hawas al-zahiriyya, we rely on it very much, don't we? We rely on it so much that, as they say in Arabic, man faqada hissan faqad faqada ilma. With the loss of a sense, you have lost a whole category of ilm. Let's say, for example, someone is basir, someone is blind. By the way, subhanallah, in Arabic language, how beautiful the Arabic language is, and how we could say politically correct Arabic language is in its nature, right? Where we don't need to change words regularly because it might not be politically correct. In the English language, there's a lot of faults and problems, because in the English language, you know, something as simple as a pronoun has become so dramatic, you know, or something as simple as, what do you refer to when it comes to a person who is handicapped, or whether the word handicap is a nice word to use or not. In Arabic, for example, a person who has lost their sight, they call them basir. Basir comes from the word basar. Basar means sight. Basir means insight. So a person who is basir is someone who has lost their sight, but what sees with their insight. So it's a very, like, if we could say, a dignified way of saying that someone has lost their sight. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because you know, we tend to overlook how beautiful this Arabic language is, and that's why Al-Quran al-Karim came in that language. Man faqada hissan faqad faqada ilma means that because you have lost this sight, ability to see, then a whole category of knowledge you don't have access to. And so we have sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. And then, according to the Avicennian of division of Ibn Sina, then you have al-hiss al-mushtarak, which is your inner sense. And what do you do in your al-hiss al-mushtarak? You're bringing all the information together. Everything that you have, you're bringing it together. So that's a part of the process of amaliyatul fikr, the process of thinking. And then you have al-khayal. Al-khayal is different to al-mutakhayyil, because al-khayal is the place where things are stored. Al-mutakhayyil are things that you use from al-khayal that makes you creative, for example. So poets and artists have a very mutakhayyila faculty that is strong. That power that they have is very strong in their imaginative side. And that could be used in a good way, and that could be used in a bad way. And that's why if it's bad, then it is condemned. And that's why, you know, in the Quran, it says al-shu'ara. Sorry, I need to just connect the, here it is. Sorry about that. That poets have been condemned. Then we have al-wahima. Al-wahima is you coming up with scenarios that you assume. Something that you formulate in your mind, in the estimative power that you have. And then al-hafidha. Al-hafidha is what it is that you are saving. And all of these faculties intensify when they are used more and more and more. So the more imaginative you become, the stronger you become in that quwwah, in that faculty, in that power that you have. The more hifz you do, the stronger you will memorize. And that's why, you know, a hafiz of Quran is always going to be stronger and quicker in memory. It's only the beginning that you become, it's difficult for you, but then later on it becomes very, very easy. Anyway, with these senses that we're talking about, we're not talking about the inner senses, although they're important. With these outer senses, who is saying, or who said that it is your outer senses that are the first and last when it comes to any kind of judgment and acquisition of knowledge? Why? Why are you limiting only, and this is directed to Western philosophy, why are you limiting only to knowledge that you acquire through your senses or experiment or empirical knowledge, and based on that, rejecting the absoluteness of knowledge purely because your senses could make some mistakes in certain areas? Okay, as we mentioned in the previous session, that senses do make mistakes, and whether it be looking at an illusion in a picture, or whether it be things that we thought we heard but we didn't, or things that we see but are contrary to what it is that they really are, like a wobbly pen, as we said. But who told you that this piece of information that you have, that you acquired through your senses, is wrong? Who said that? Who told you that it was wrong? Would someone else tell you, or you yourself acknowledged and you know? So there's something that's governing your sensory knowledge. Why do you dismiss that? Why are you only limiting to al-ilm al-hissi or al-idrak al-hissi, sensory perception? The problem here is when those who limit knowledge to they say that this is the only way that you can acquire information, because it is reflecting, it is a shabah, it is an in'ikas of the reality of what it is that occurs around us. And because that's the case, then of course it's always going to be like that. But there's a very big difference, especially when you want to look at something that is as conventional or as nominal as morning, sun goes up, evening, sun goes down. And so that kind of information is clear. But the problem is that with al-ilm al-husuli, you're always going to somehow have a problem unless it is based on burhan and 100% yaqini information. And that's why sensory perception is not presential, it is acquired. Inshallah, in the next episode, in our next session, we're going to address the concerns brought about by those who reject the justification of knowledge based on our senses making mistakes. But the most important point that that should be mentioned here is those, let's say 30 or 40 mistakes that your senses make, what is governing them? What is telling you that these senses have made mistakes? That's what you should be relying on, not the information derived from your sensory errors and giving that the status of it being 100% yaqini and certain. Inshallah, we'll continue on in our next session, and we will finish off with today's session and open up for questions and answers. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. If anyone has any thing to mention.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Just a couple of quick points, if I may.
Sure.
So again, I'm referring back to the title of this course as Islamic Epistemology. And you spoke about the necessity of studying logic. Would you say that logic is also the same, that you have Islamic logic and non-Islamic logic? Because it's not subject I have any introduction to. So I just want to get some guidance on if that is something to keep in mind when somebody goes out seeking to study logic.
Well, in logic, you cannot say Islamic logic. You can say logic in the Islamic tradition. And that's mainly because logic itself are just tools that the intellect uses. It's not an analysis of a certain scenario or situation. The Islamic tradition of ilm al-mantiq is very, very rich and very detailed, very comprehensive. So we can't dismiss the value of the contributions of ulama al-mantiq that were Muslim. But to call it Islamic logic, no, it's, first of all, it's unconventional. It hasn't been used at all. And second of all, it doesn't really carry anything religious in that pure sense. Whereas with something like epistemology or philosophy, and why there are those who believe it to be attributed to a religion, is because of the affiliation of many of the topics that are being discussed in the pure sense. Like in Islamic epistemology, for example, the ilm, the knowledge that is acquired through the Quran or through Jibreel alayhi salam is very, very valuable and very justifiable. And that's why, it can be taken to be Islamic in that sense, not like logic.
Jazakallah. And just to kind of maybe preempt something that you said will be coming to later, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I taught Adam the names, though the knowing of those names, is that qalbi or is that something different?
That's different. Yeah, we're
Okay.
going to get into that.
Inshallah. Jazakallah Shaykh.
Cool. Can we conclude that everything that can't be proven by outer senses needs epistemology in order for it to be proven? Well, we need epistemology for everything, actually. We need epistemology because epistemology is the gathering of thoughts and the processing of how we are dealing with it. So it's very much in line of wanting to find justification for knowledge of any sort, whether it be inner or outer. Is khayal the ingrained ability in animals and humans to measure things perceived by senses like cat? Yeah, I would say it holds the same everyday meaning of just bringing information into your mind in that sense. Yeah. So I would say that's the second one, Sister Fatima. You're welcome. So we'll continue on if anyone has anything to say in our group discussion, and see you all on our third program, inshallah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.